Hello, sports fans, and welcome back to a new season of ntTV Sports Zone, where all of the latest and greatest in sports is discussed and even argued right here. My name is Whitley Pleasant, and joining me first up is Kara Bullock and Tori Mosley. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Pretty good.
All right, I want to jump right into it. Could we be having an all-Missouri World Series, St. Louis versus Kansas City, or could Baltimore or San Francisco make a comeback? What about you, Tori?
I think we will. KC obviously will be winning tonight and going to the World Series. They're up 3-0 already. Vargas is pitching tonight, and he does pretty well. I mean, just in general. And I think, you know, with the momentum that they have going already for them, they'll be going to the World Series. And St. Louis did lose last night, 10th inning walk-off. It was kind of a fluke in my idea. They kind of didn't show up when they should have in the end. And but I think they'll win one of the next two games, and they'll have the last two games at home. And Molina should be coming back, calling the game under catcher, and him coming back, momentum at home. You know, they're unstoppable at home in the postseason. So
it's looking good for them right now. Apparently.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good right now.
I completely agree with you. The way that they're playing, the way the Royals are playing specifically, their defense and their small ball is like out of this world. Because who honestly thought they were going to be here in the first place? You know, they've won 7 straight games. You know, they're going to win tonight, and the Orioles are not going to come back. And the way Mike Moustakas caught that ball over the rail was like, I think it embodies the whole series and the way KC plays because they're playing so hard. I mean,
that's pure athleticism right there.
Exactly. Like, you see that, but you don't see that in regular season. So it just kind of tells you that they do want this. And, you know, I kind of think that the Giants got lucky last night with the walk-off, the error walk-off as well.
Not taking anything from them. Giants have been doing great.
Oh, of course, but it's going to be an uphill battle for the Cardinals, period, because they are down 2-1 in the series.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I'm excited for it.
Oh, yeah.
But I kind of want to switch gears a little bit. Which NFL quarterback seems to be hitting their stride after Week 6? And is Manning finally steady after a huge Super Bowl loss last year?
Well, I think people are sleeping on Andrew Luck. And I say that we have so much distraction going on with everything else in the NFL, but I think people aren't focusing on Andrew Luck. I mean, he's got 2,000 yards or throwing yards already. You know, I think he's on a track to get 5,000 yards for the season. But, you know, he's not your flashy quarterback like Colin Kaepernick who can lob the ball up in the air and somehow find his target. I mean, the guy's great, but he does his job. He gets it done. And, again, I think people are sleeping on him for sure.
What about you, Tori? Who else is?
Maybe I'm just biased because, you know, I'm from Houston, Texas. Andrew Luck, Katy High School alum, Houston, Texas. I've been following him for a while. He's always been a great quarterback. He's in the AFC South, which, you know, coming from Houston, the Texans and the Jaguars, the Titans, he's not facing anybody that's going to be anywhere near a threat towards him or the passing game of the Colts so far. And I mean, he's obviously going to at least win 10, 11, 12 games in that division. Kaepernick, which she brought up, is actually one of my quarterbacks. He's been playing great so far. He has at least 200 yards in every game so far. And he's playing in the NFC West, which I think might be the best conference, best division in the NFL right now. And Kaepernick doing great in the best against the best, and Luck doing great against the worst. I don't think you can really compare that.
But you can't say that Andrew Luck isn't a good quarterback.
He's a great quarterback, don't get me wrong, but when it comes to the playoffs, I don't think he's really going to do anything compared to what Kaepernick's going to do in the
You think he's just going to fizzle out, or where are you going with that?
I mean, you brought up Manning. I see Manning going back to the Super Bowl this year anyway. But like I said, like going against the Peyton Mannings or the Tom Brady's of the AFC, he's not going to even compare. But my second quarterback was Romo.
Oh, God.
Thank you. I was waiting for one of y'all to say it. I've been waiting for it.
Ever since losing to Kaepernick the first week, my other quarterback.
Something sparked in him. Something sparked, because
he's won 5 games in a row for us, and they've had a very great balance.
You know, and he's only thrown one interception in the last 3 games. That is impressive from the last year.
The only thing that is is keeping the Cowboys is DeMarco Murray. That's all I'm going to say.
The only thing?
Yes.
I mean, I don't think that's
what
true
about
at
our
all.
passing game?
Because
What
if we
about
don't watch,
what
when
about
you
our
lose-
O-line? What about our
When you
impressive
lose
defensive
DeMarco
line?
Murray, y'all are done.
No.
Yes,
You still have
absolutely.
Randall, even though he's dealing with that scandal right now, which I
Oh,
hope that doesn't take the distraction off.
Yeah, you still
But come on
cologne
now.
in underwear. Come on.
The only thing I would say
You're making
Romo
how
has
much
to worry
money?
about right now is the fact that we haven't played any of our division rivals yet, and that's when we usually see us losing the fourth quarter.
Oh, I think they're just
And
warming
that's
up.
the only thing I'm worrying about right now, because that's when the game changes. But our O-line's doing great, Romo's doing great, Murray's doing great, even though it's been fumbling a lot. And that's my second
Won't speak on
quarterback.
that one.
And I don't think Manning was ever even off his game. I think
Yeah.
Seattle was probably the only defense that could have done that to him in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
And I
Manning,
think
he's a living
with Julius
legend.
Thomas and Demaryius Thomas, they had a lot of great young talent, but that's what it was, I think. They had a lot of great young talent. They weren't really in sync enough to play a physical game against Seattle like that. But I think this year they'll be ready, and we'll see what happens.
Man, I tell you, the NFL is changing as we speak, and I'm so excited, guys.
Yes.
But we're going to have to wrap this up. All right, well, I think that's enough for now. Coming back after the break, we will discuss a college football shakeup and whether UNT is still in big trouble for the season and who's looking good after the first week of hockey. We'll be right back on SportsZone. Welcome back to ntTV Sports Zone. We are now joined by Anthony Pekarski and Zach Ziminar. How are you guys doing today?
Very good.
All right, well, let's jump right into it with our new topic. How's UNT looking this year, seeing as they are coming to a halfway point with the losing record? What do you guys think? How are they doing so far?
Well, I mean, they're 2-3, so I mean, it's kind of like last season. They ended up going 2-3, and they won
Kind
all
of like
that.
deja vu right
Kind
now.
of. I mean, but I don't see what happened last year happening this year. I mean, they've got problems on the defensive side of the ball, but I think their main concern is on the offensive side of the ball. Their quarterback controversy per se. Dejon Williams is obviously the starter. He came in week 3 was it? Week 3. Dan McCartney made him the starter, gave him the keys to the car, told him to take us back to where we were last year, but it's obviously not happening
Yeah,
for him.
I don't think he's getting the job done. What about you, Zach?
No, I mean, the thing is with Dejon Williams, he's a freshman. But the thing is that there's nobody else better that could supplant him. So you're just going to have to ride it out with Dejon Williams. Don't give me this Josh Greer stuff. Don't give me this Andrew McNulty stuff. I mean, Andrew McNulty went out against the 3s and the 4s and put up some numbers against UAB, but I think you just have to stick with Dejon Williams. It's going to be tough to get to 6 wins. Even if you get to 6 wins, then you need a flyer from the NCAA because you beat an FCS foe, so you really need to get to 7 wins to get to a bowl game, so it's really tough. It just might be one of those years where you finish 5-7, 4-8. I mean, I look down the schedule. There's not many wins here that I see. Maybe Southern Miss this week, maybe FIU, maybe FAU, but you can make an argument that they could lose just about every game aside from this weekend.
You know, guys, I have to say, looking ahead, is this team capable of winning a bowl game? Can we do that again this year?
This year, no. I don't think so. I mean, they can win a couple games, but from what I've seen so far, I don't think they're capable of winning a bowl game.
If they get to a bowl game, it's probably going to be the Popeyes Bahamas Bowl, which is one of the worst bowls out of the 37 games that there is in the postseason, and they're going to end up taking on a 6-6 team or a 7-5 team. So if they do get there, they'll have a shot.
Right.
Do they get there? They won't.
So you're saying this team right now is not as mature because it was senior heavy last year and we lost a lot of key players. What do you think needs to happen between now and the rest of the season?
I think it's more of a learning season for UNT. I think it's going to be one of those. It's going to be a tough year, obviously, like it already has. I think we'll get a couple wins. We're not going to win 9 games, obviously, but it's going to be a learning curve for all of them, especially like Dejon. I think they just need to let him ride it out, learn on the field instead of on the sideline.
Don't drop back and throw it 25, 30 times with Dejon Williams. You have a guy in Anton Jimerson back-to-back weeks, 83 yards against Indiana, 104 yards against UAB, and a touchdown. This guy is averaging 7 yards per carry in his last 2 games. Give him the football.
All right, guys, we want to transition a little bit onto the ice. Who's looking good after this first week of hockey, and what's to come with the Stanley Cup winners losing their first game 4-0?
I'll say for the top, I picked the top 3 for hockey, and I'm going to go ahead and go with the San Jose Sharks. They're 3-0. Their differentials in goals is 13-5. And I only say San Jose because they're a competitor to the Dallas Stars, and that's our market. New Jersey also, they're a top team. They've gone on the road for 3 games so far. They haven't had a home game. They've only played 3 games. They've won in tough environments, obviously. But, I mean, New Jersey's good almost every year in hockey. They're always a contender. And for the LA Kings, personally, they might have lost 4-0 in their home opener. But considering that they've won 2 Stanley Cups in, I believe, the last 3 years.
Doesn't that always happen in any sports, whether
Right.
it's the NBA, the Major League Baseball? Doesn't the home
So
team
should
always
they have
lose?
anything to worry about?
I don't think so, because they might have lost 4-0, and they lost their second game 3-2 in overtime against an Arizona Coyote team. But they went up north to 2 Canada teams in Winnipeg and Edmonton. They blew them out 3-1 and 4-1. So I don't think they have any concern. They look good in those 2 blowout games. They're going to be fine. They just had the jitters for, I guess you could say, raise the banner per se.
Might we worry about the New York Rangers off to a 1-3 start, though? They went to the Stanley Cup Finals. They got embarrassed.
Yeah.
But I think that might be a team you might have to worry about. They're off to a slow start.
They are. I mean,
how important is the start to you guys?
I mean, in any sport, I mean, sure, you want to get off to a fast-paced start, but I mean, in hockey, I think they're going to be fine. It's important to get off to a fast start, obviously, but I mean, if you lose in a blowout 4-0, it's nothing to be too concerned about, especially when you've rebounded over time.
Okay, guys, and going forward, who do you see going the furthest this year, or is it too soon to tell?
Well, I think it's too soon to tell, but I hope the Dallas Stars, because I feel like hockey's becoming more of a, like it's expanding from what I've seen. Like, for me, I'm a reborn hockey fan. Over the last 3 years, I've paid more attention to it, and I just think the Dallas Stars have got a really nice young team. They're not going to win the Stanley Cup or anything, but they're going to make a nice little push.
Would you agree, Zach?
I mean, the Dallas Stars probably a 4, 5, 6 seed in that Western Conference. But to be honest with you, I don't know if we're going to see anybody other than Southern California. You know, you look at LA, you look at San Jose. Those are the 2 teams that you have to keep an eye on.
We also have Anaheim too, who beat the Stars last season in the conference or in the opening round. Good series.
All right, guys. Well, I guess we will have to wait and see how them boys do during the rest of the season. But coming back, Robert C. will be leading us through how the Mavs are gearing up, and we'll take a look at the Red River Shootout. We'll see you back on SportsZone.
Hi, welcome back to the second half of our program. I'm Robert C. I'm joined today by Brady Pointer and Saad Youssef. Let's dive right in. Saad, what are your expectations for the Mavs this season?
Well, I think they're a legitimate contender. I think the way they've been playing in this preseason, they have a lot of depth. That was the one thing that I had questions about coming in. I thought that they had a good starting lineup, but they have a lot of depth. And the bottom half of the roster, Charlie Villanueva, Richard Jefferson, all these players are playing at a very high level, and they're playing like they're young again. So I think they're going to be pretty good.
I agree completely. The one thing coming into the preseason was their team chemistry. Were they going to be able to play together as a team with the new faces, Chandler Parsons, Tyson Chandler, not necessarily new face, but new to some people. Sure. And Raymond Felton, Jameer Nelson, how are they going to compete as a team? And they, so far, have done really well. Dirk came back the last game, scored 16 points. Doesn't look like he lost a step at all. So I do have high expectations for the Mavericks this season.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And they have, like, the way Rick Carlisle has been juggling this roster, it's been really impressive. He's gone from a huge lineup with Aminu and all these guys, Aminu playing the shooting guard position and with Dirk at power forward and Tyson Chandler at center. And then he's also gone small with 2 point guards and Chandler Parsons playing the 4, which is probably why he has all that weight on, so he can post people up. So yeah, there's a lot of different mixtures, and Monte Ellis is still not fully
he's
healthy
coming back.
right now. He's coming back
against Memphis, I think, which will be fun to watch because Vince Carter will be back.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I do have high expectations. I do think against the Spurs, October 28th, that's going to be a good game.
Yeah, I think defense.
That's going to be fun to. Defense
and chemistry seem to be the things that worry people, but I think that might go into the reason we might have signed so many veterans. I mean, Felton, however you feel about him, he's a veteran. Yeah. Jameer Nelson, Charlie Villanueva, Richard Jefferson, these guys it's a lot easier to plug these guys into a lineup than it is.
They know what to do because they just been playing the game so long. They know how to play.
Yeah, and he's got, I think, Aminu, we'll learn a lot under.
He's
under all this.
supposed to be the Marion substitute, but we'll see how
and
that
I
goes.
mean, and it's just like, defensively, they allowed 111 in the first preseason game, 118 in the second, then they went back down to 98 against the Pacers, but that's a suspect offensive team anyway.
Yeah,
so
without
that's
Paul
the only
George.
question mark I have, but I have no doubt that over an 82-game stretch, they'll figure that out.
I mean, they may be old, but we have some size at the perimeter with Illinois and Jefferson. So as long as they're where they're supposed to be, I think we can hang with about anybody. Now, the Red River Shootout has lost a bit of its prominence, being that UNT isn't really with the team that they are. They're in a rebuilding phase, and OU is, well, they're still in the hunt. Are we more disappointed with the Longhorns, or are we impressed by? Disappointed in OU's performance, or more disappointed or impressed by UT?
I'm not really. I don't really look at it as that. It's the Red River rivalry. Red River rivalry. No matter how the prominence of it, it's still one of the biggest rivalries in all of sports, I could say.
Sure.
For history per se, but it's a rivalry game. They're going to come out. They're going to play their hardest, regardless of Texas being unranked and OU being ranked.
Is OU still in the mix, Sod?
They're in the mix. They are in the mix, but I don't have a lot of faith in them. But going off what Brady said, Red River rivalry is just that. Emphasis on the last word.
Sure.
Because a rivalry, you throw the records out. There's no records there anymore, and they just go at it. You look at the game that was played. Texas won the game.
They do have a good team.
Phase of the game.
They have.
They outrushed you. They outrushed OU. They outpassed OU. They had everything. The only thing they didn't have is those big plays. A pick six that OU had. A kickoff return for a touchdown that OU had. OU didn't convert a single third down all game, but when it counted, they swung it out and they got that
Texas,
third down.
I mean, Texas has a good team. They're not. I mean, they're unranked just because they lost. They're
a young
inconsistent.
team.
They are a young team. Young quarterback and Tyrone Swoops. They do have the best two running backs in Big 12, and Jonathan Gray and Malcolm Brown.
Like to see
Right,
them get
and
utilized
the one
a little more.
concern I
They
have
need
with
to run
OU
more.
is Trevor Knight is on a downward spiral right now.
he's not
Trevor
doing
Knight
good.
is
I mean,
struggling.
We
I
lost
wanna
confidence
see-
from last year, and what did he do against Alabama? So
I want to see. I
I'll
want to
see
see
if
how
they
I
can-
want to see how OU plays against Baylor coming up in 3 weeks. If they can give them a fight and maybe you take that game, it's in Norman.
Yeah,
Isn't
I
it?
think
It's in Norman. So I want to see how that plays. If Baylor wins that game, they're in the playoffs.
We'll see if that
And
defense is
Baylor's
legitimate against them.
Baylor's not the only test. They can't even skip over to Baylor. They got Kansas State coming to Norman right now this
I don't
week.
think
Then they got
OU's a
Baylor, and then they
factor
finish
anymore.
out against the Pokes and against OSU. It's gonna be hard to get in that playoff.
So it depends on what these teams, what TCU and Baylor can do against Kansas State. Who do we have in the Big 12? Do you think any of the Big 12 teams,
Baylor
as it sits,
Baylor
have a chance
has
to get
the
into the
best
playoffs
shot
and
right
doing
now.
something?
Baylor, I think
definitely.
Baylor has
They-
that win. They have that win that those other teams don't really have. They have that win.
They got the
against TCU.
offense that no
It was a
one else
gut check.
has. Yeah.
So it was impressive.
Yeah, they definitely have the offense to take, to make up for that defense. I mean, 58 points is a lot of points.
Yeah, against TCU. I mean, TCU was their first true test
Yeah.
this season. When they come out, they 21 points, 12 minutes left in the game, and they come back and they win. They go 24 unanswered. That shows a lot of talent, shows a lot of heart and fight in that Baylor
Well,
team.
every week is a new test for all these teams, and it's going to be really interesting going forward. Coming up after the break, we bring our top analysts back, and we will be discussing the Sarieville's high school's football season canceled due to allegations against some of the players. Stay with us and find out after the break on SportsZone. Welcome back to the show. I'm with my top analysts, and we're talking about Sayersville High School football season canceled due to allegations. Now, there are rumors that they're going to potentially scrap the entire program. Is that an appropriate response, Anthony?
I think so, just because they, how in sports, a team is one, and you succeed as a team or you fall as a team. And I think in this case, if there was nobody, no other players, there's 7 players that got charged, right? What about the others? Did they know about it?
The adults or the others?
The players. Did they know about it too? And if they did, why didn't they tell anybody? So, it's kind of a what if. There's not really too much about the story yet. We don't know all the details yet. It's kind of a what happened.
I think
deal.
it's kind of like up and down. I mean, I think the right thing was to cancel because
The season?
The season, yeah,
think
because
so.
it sends out a message to your guys that what are y'all doing? This is not acceptable. You can't be on a team and expect to win and then do things like this.
You're not being leaders.
Exactly.
basically.
Right, and it's just the canceling the season was a no-brainer. It's going forward if you want to give them the death penalty is what really is the next step. But for that, you have to let the legal process play out. What happened was absolutely disgusting. I mean, Penn State went through this earlier with hazing. The Miami Dolphins just went through this. Richie Incognito is not on that team, neither is Jonathan Martin. This is how severe it is that even professional teams, they get rid of all that stuff out of their locker. And I'm just going to read a quick quote from CNN. It says, to show what was happening, it says, in the darkness, freshman football player would be pinned to the locker room floor, his arms and feet held down by multiple upperclassmen. Then the victim would be lifted to his feet and sexually assaulted. That is disgusting, and that is just something that should not be allowed in any kind of locker room, any kind of professionalism. It doesn't matter.
I think it's a good thing that they, taking it back to canceling the season, because you're telling them, or you're starting them early that behavior like this isn't acceptable. Because then you have guys like Jameis Winston who we don't know what's really going on with him, but then you have a guy like him who's constantly, having offenses thrown at him, or he's actually doing these kinds of things. But you're starting them early to let them know, like, hey, this is not acceptable. So, and it's interesting that you brought up Penn State, because Penn State actually took away one of their scholarships from one of the running backs on the team.
Yeah.
So.
I think, yes, taking away the season's a no-brainer because that's the immediate impact it has. You can't sit around and act, and it's naive to think that the other players had no idea. So I'm okay with punishing the entire team, honestly.
Yeah.
But the question was about the program. Now, I think that to do a death penalty, I would almost agree with it if it depends on how many adults knew about it. If they took these transgressions to not the superintendent, but the AD, the head football coach, and they did nothing, then there needs to be a culture change. And sometimes that happens with a few years of no football.
Right, and I agree with that. But the thing is that you have to let the process play itself out for imposing the death penalty. There's no process playing out imposing this season.
Okay.
But for the death penalty, and that buys you time. I mean, next season doesn't start until August, September. So you have all these months to play out the legal process and see, and it needs to be a collective decision. And I would be if all this stuff is true, I would be all for the death penalty, definitely.
Now, there's more speculation of potentially trying these teenagers as adults. How do we feel about this?
Yeah, it should. That's how they should be tried as adults. It's going to be hard. That's how they should be tried, but it's going to be hard because in 2012, the Supreme Court made a decision. It was a 3-2 decision, and you have to prove why you need to charge them as an adult and why their actions will deter from them doing this again. So you have to prove that this is exactly the reason why they should be charged as adults, and it wasn't just a childish mistake or something like that. So that's where
the ages do range from 15 to 17.
Yeah.
So there is a point where it's like the 17-year-olds. Obviously, the people who are in charge would be the older ones. I would definitely agree with that. That's where I get in the gray area when you're talking about 15 and 16, who's just. I mean, I don't want to give so much empathy to doing such a thing, but
yeah, they're 15, 17, but they knew exactly what they were doing, and they know that is wrong. Because even one kid turned himself in, and it could be guilty, conscience, or just because he knew that it was wrong. But you're right, it's going to be really hard to try them as adults, but they need to be, because
that Supreme Court decision in 2012 that really plays a big part here because
how old were they when? How old
I
were
believe
the
they
people
were
in charge?
16 back in 2012 when this decision was made. I think it was for 16-year-olds.
And I don't know if it was just a case of the 15-year-olds just trying to fit in with the upperclassmen, oh, hey, let's try this, let's be cool,
But do you give them a pass for that?
No, not at all.
Exactly.
The juvenile punishment would be I think a year and a half in a juvenile detention, which sounds, based on the crime alone, sounds a little bit light, but at the same time, man, 15 years old, I didn't do anything like this, but I did some stupid things that I just can't even believe I did at this point. Exactly.
I don't know what our generation.
So I mean, as much as they need to be punished, it's taking away their life is somewhere where I have a hard time just dropping the hammer. Well, this has been an emotional episode of Sports Zone. We will see you next week. I'm Robert C, and I want to thank my guests.